and welcome. My name is Claudia and welcome to day 12 of 24 recipes until Christmas. Today we're making arroz doce, rice pudding, the Portuguese way, not the Canadian way, and certainly not with raisins. So let's get into the recipe. For this recipe, you're going to need rice. I'm using Portuguese rice, but you want to use Aborio rice. And if you're using the Portuguese rice, it would be Arroz Carolino, which is a short grain rice, because you want it to be creamy and you want to use good quality rice. We're also going to need sugar. We're going to need 4 egg yolks. Save the egg whites. You can always make pavlova or maybe some coconut macaroons or an omelet. You're going to need some butter and a cinnamon stick and the lemon rind or lemon peel. When you're doing the lemon peel, you want to make sure that you're not getting any of the white part of the lemon because that's going to be bitter. I find using a vegetable peeler is the easiest way to get a perfect lemon peel without the white. Sugar, can't remember if I said that. And we're going to need milk. I'm using full fat 3% milk. You want to use full fat milk so it does get creamy. We're going to need salt and then cinnamon just to decorate at the end. So let's get into it. Bora cozinhar. So we want to start off by cooking our rice. And for the rice, we're going to do 1 part rice, 3 parts water. We're cooking our rice in water. We're also going to heat up our milk at the same time. So right now I'm bringing my water to a boil. And while I'm waiting for it to come to a boil, I'm going to add my cinnamon stick and my lemon peel into the pot. So the water is boiling and now we're going to add in our rice, the butter, and the salt. So rice in, butter in, and our salt. So this rice now needs to cook for approximately 12 minutes. So what we're looking for is for the rice to completely soak up the water, and that should take usually around 12 minutes. It might at that point still be a little bit al dente, and that's perfectly fine. And once we get to that point, we start adding in our warm milk. So at this point, we want to cover it and once in a while check up on it so it doesn't, because we want to make sure that it doesn't stick to the bottom. I'm also going to lower my heat to a medium low so it's just simmering. So now the 12 minutes are up and our rice is still a little bit al dente. You have 2 options. You can continue the recipe and start adding in your hot milk, or you can turn off the heat, give it about 10 minutes, and then see how the rice is cooked. The rice will continue cooking even when you start putting in the milk. So that's not an issue. It'll finish cooking. The only time the rice will stop cooking is as soon as you add the sugar. And the sugar we're only going to add in at the end. So this is my rice after 12 minutes. See how it's soaked up all the water. And now I'm going to start adding in the warm milk. I find the easiest way to do that is with the ladle. And you want to do it the same way you do a risotto. You're going to add a bit of milk and then you're going to let the rice soak up the milk. And then you add more milk until you've added all the milk. So now we just continue stirring and we have it at a low heat. This is a slow process and you just take your time with it. At this point, once you start adding in the milk, you don't want to turn your back on the rice. You want to keep stirring it because this is when it can start sticking to the bottom and we want to avoid that. So once all the milk is gone, you add in more milk, and this is a very slow process. And you just keep stirring on low heat and adding in more milk. So when it gets to this point where you've almost added in all the milk, you really have to keep stirring, constantly stirring, because it will stick very easily, and you don't want to ruin your beautiful rice pudding. So always stir, stir, stir. Let's talk about troubleshooting our rice. You might be wondering, but why are we adding the milk slowly in? The reason we want to add the milk slowly in and not just dump it in all at once is because you want the rice to soak up all the milk and release all the starch, and that's what's going to make it creamy. If you add the milk in all at the same time, you're not going to get the same results. And I cannot stress this enough, you do not want to add the sugar in until your rice is completely cooked. And we're going to do that once we finish adding in all the milk and we taste the rice and it's cooked and it's nice and soft, then we can add in the sugar. If you add in the sugar before that time period, your rice will not cook. No matter how long you're going to have it on the stove, it's not going to cook. So just remember that. That's a very important point. So I've added in all the milk, and now I'm going to let it go just for maybe another few minutes, just so it can thicken up a bit more, because we wouldn't want to, once you add the sugar, it's going to stop the cooking process, and it's also not going to soak up any more of the milk. So you want to see your consistency. You want the kind that you want for your rice pudding. So just a few more minutes, and it should be like, I would say this is almost done. Of course, it's going to set more than this, but you already see how creamy it is. It's also a good time now to taste your rice. My rice is nice and soft. If your rice is not nice and soft, then you just let it go a little bit longer. If it starts to dry up too much, you can always add a bit more milk or a bit more water. So you can see it is nice and creamy. We didn't add in any cornstarch. We didn't add in any thickening agent. It's just from the milk. And now that our rice is fully cooked, it is nice and creamy. It's soaked up a lot of the milk. We're going to add our sugar. So you want to cook it maybe for another 2 to 3 minutes, just so the sugar dissolves completely. But as soon as it hits the rice, because the rice is hot, it should dissolve, but just let it go maybe for another minute or so. So we're going to pull it off the heat now, and we're going to let it just cool for a little bit before we temper the eggs, and then the egg yolks, before we temper the egg yolks, and then we're going to add the egg yolks in. So you just want to wait like a few minutes, maybe 5 minutes, just to let this cool a bit before you can temper the egg yolks. Otherwise, you're going to end up with scrambled eggs. So we've let the rice cool a little bit, and now we're ready to temper the eggs. So I'm just going to take a little bit of the rice and add it into our egg yolks. And you just want to stir it at the same time. And it also helps that you have your egg yolks at room temperature. So the shock of having something warm go into them isn't gonna, scramble them up. Once you can feel the bowl that the eggs are warm, you can then add it into your rice. So now we're ready to add the egg yolks into our rice, and we just want to slowly and keep stirring it in, just slow, so we don't end up with scrambled eggs. So now we're going to go back on the stove for like 3 to 5 minutes just to cook the egg yolks a bit, and we just want to have it on medium-low, like a simmer. Just cook it. We're just giving it some heat. So our rice is done, and I just want to note that once you add in the sugar, it's going to seem like all of a sudden you have more liquid in your rice, but don't worry, because it will get to the point where it'll be firm like pudding. I'm going to remove my cinnamon stick and my lemon rind now, And then, so for serving, you have a few options. You can put them in individual little bowls. Personally, I like to put them in a big tray, and then each person can just serve themselves. So that is what we're doing today. I have this beautiful tray here, and that's where I usually like to put my rice pudding. So just like pudding, the rice pudding, the arroz doce, now needs to set. It usually takes around half an hour to an hour for it to set. So we're gonna put it aside and then we'll come back and decorate our rice pudding. So it's actually the next day. I let the rice pudding rest overnight. You can totally just let it rest for an hour and a half until it's set, and then move on to the next step. So now it comes to, we're gonna decorate our rice pudding. And the way I do it is just the traditional way. We're gonna use some cinnamon and make some designs with the cinnamon on the rice pudding. You could also use a cup or like stencils and make your design with the cinnamon like that. So I'm just doing a traditional design. As you can see, design is probably not my forte or decoration. This is the traditional way of decorating the rice pudding, the lines like that. But like I said, you can use a stencil or you can use a cup and make like circles. I've done little hearts before where I cut out hearts and then just put the cinnamon over and then took out the heart. So you have the little heart designs. For Easter, I did like an Easter egg design. So whatever you want, but this is like the traditional way of decorating. So now comes the most difficult part. Let's try our rice pudding. So now let's taste. The rice pudding is perfect. It's nice and creamy. The rice is well cooked and there's lots of cream in here. It is perfect consistency. I hope you make this recipe. This is a great suggestion for your Christmas dessert table. Let me know if you make it. Make sure you're subscribed and you hit the notification bells so you know when I post my next recipe. Hope to see you again soon, and thanks for watching.